Welcome to Best Friends of Nina Menasha Match Enhancement Workshop. My name is Lisa Thede, and I'm the Family Services Coordinator. On the screen, you'll see my contact information should you have any questions about this workshop, your match, or mentoring in general. The mission of Best Friends is to help young people thrive through the power of mentoring relationships and supportive family networks. The purpose of the workshop today is to help you help your young friend reach the goals that were developed for them when they entered the program. So you may be asking yourself, our match has goals? Yes, it does. When we do the child intake, we ask the children what types of things they'd like to learn when they are with a mentor and being in the program. We also ask the parents what they feel mentoring can do for their child. After a year of being matched in the program, we also ask for input from the mentors as to what they may feel would be appropriate goals for the children. The goals are based on the Search Institute's 40 developmental assets. So what is the Search Institute? It is an organization that has been in existence for over 50 years. What it does is studied what motivates children and promotes positive change in their lives by better understanding children's lives, beliefs, and their values. What are developmental assets? In 1990, Search Institute developed a framework of developmental assets, which identifies a set of skills, experiences, relationships, and behaviors that enable young people to develop into successful and contributing adults. The research that was done was completed on more than 5 million children all over the world from all different backgrounds and situations. On the screen, you'll see the first 20 of the 40 developmental assets. The first section that you'll see revolves around support. So children need to feel supported by those in their life, especially the adults in their life. They need to have positive family communication so they feel that they can go to their parents to bounce ideas off of or talk to them about problems that may come up. Other adult relationships are extremely important, and that's where mentoring comes in. The research that was completed showed that children who have 3 or more adults in their life that are mature, responsible adults that children feel they can trust and go to are ideal. These are people that are outside of their parents. So you may think back to a time when you had a teacher, a coach, or an aunt or uncle that you could go to in times of need where you didn't want to talk to your parents. And that's where these relationships become very important. Children also need to experience caring neighborhoods, schools, and parental involvement in schooling. The next section you'll see is empowerment. Children really need to feel valued by their community and especially the adults around them. That people see them, especially adults, see them as people who are useful and can contribute. This is where volunteering may come into play, where they can feel that they're providing something useful in the community. Children also need to feel safe at home, school, and in their neighborhoods. The next section is boundaries and expectations. So family, school, and neighborhood boundaries need to be clear and consistent. Children need to know that certain behaviors will have certain consequences, and they need to know what those consequences are ahead of time. They can't just do something and then have a consequence imposed on them. It really helps to have them understand why it's happening, have them feel that it's realistic and fair. And it needs to be implemented by responsible adults that are also showing responsible behavior in their own lives. Children also need to have positive peers in their life that are helping them to encourage them to do well and to have high expectations for each other. The next section you'll see is create constructive use of time. This is where children are involved in other things outside of school. This can be extracurriculars in school or other programs such as Best Friend. It may be theater, music, arts, anything that helps the child be constructive outside of their time so that they aren't spending a lot of time with nothing special to do to find some trouble. The next 20 developmental assets revolve around commitment to learning. So it's important that children want to do well in school, that they are actively engaged in learning. So they're doing their homework, handing it in, they care about their school. A big one that we've been seeing as a goal for many of the kids that we have not been seeing that they are coming into the program with are reading for pleasure. So just for children to be just picking up anything, it doesn't need to be a book. If the young friend that you're with struggles with reading or doesn't like to read, it's just getting them engaged in something. Let's say they like basketball and you pick up a Sports Illustrated and you just kind of read together through one of the articles. Just something to pique their interest and to start them to learn that reading can be fun. Positive values is another section. Children really need to care about those in their lives, to care about equality and social justice, integrity, that they do the right thing even when somebody's not watching, that honesty is important to them, that they are able to tell the truth even when it's not easy, that they take responsibility for their life. And if this is going to look different for the different ages in the program, what responsibility to a 5-year-old might be brushing their teeth, responsibility for a 16-year-old might be getting a job. So that's going to vary, but that each child at an age appropriate level is expecting or is accepting appropriate responsibility. And restraint, that they have some values and boundaries around things that are risky, such as sexual activity and alcohol and drugs. Social competencies, these are important for the children in our program and for their futures, that they're able to plan and make decisions. This one comes into play with the young friends actually probably quite often. And it can start at a very young age when you ask them, where do you want to go to eat? And they say, I don't know, it doesn't matter. And we often say to them, give them choices. Say, do you want to go to Taco Bell or McDonald's? But to give them some ways to give their input and help make decisions so that they aren't afraid to speak up and voice their opinions as they get older. For them to learn about interpersonal competence so that they have those friendship skills, the please, the thank yous that I'm sure many of you often have to work on and role model for them. Cultural competence, that they have some knowledge and comfort of people of different cultural, racial, and ethnic backgrounds. Again, those resistance skills kind of goes along with the restraint we talked about earlier, that they can resist negative peer pressure and dangerous situations that they might be put in. And peaceful conflict resolution. So rather than yelling and using maybe their fists or physical aggression, that they learn to talk it out and come to compromise. Positive identity is part of the last section that we'll be talking about of these 40 developmental assets. And that's children feel that they have some sort of control of things that happen to them. Since they are younger, many decisions are being made for them. So it's nice to let them know that there are some things that they have control over. That they feel positive about themselves and their image, and that they feel they have some worth and value. That their life has a purpose, that there is something in the future for them that they should be striving toward. So these are the framework that we set our goals for the kids in our program. Many of the goals, there's a few outside of this that we may come up, and we definitely don't shy away from anything that's outside of these 40 assets, but gives us a good starting point when we're talking with the families to see what they feel a child could be working on with their mentors. So why are they important? This information is coming right from the Institute, Search Institute. And these are going to give you a couple of graphs to give you just kind of a visualization as to why these assets are so important. So the number of children that are at the full 40 is only 11%. Only 11% of those children that they surveyed, and you can see that it was 89,000 youth, grades 6 to 12, had a full 31 to 40. And almost the same amount, and actually a little more, had 0 to 10. So what does that mean? Well, as far as assets in school success, a definition of school success here is youth who report mostly A's on their report card. If children have only 0 to 10 assets, only 8% of those children are getting mostly A's on their report card. But you can see that jumps to 59% if they're in the area where they have 31 to 40 developmental assets. Assets in underage drinking. Underage drinking here is youth who have used alcohol 3 or more times in the past month or have gotten drunk 1 or more times in the past 2 weeks. Children who have 10 or less assets, 44% are in that category of underage drinking that I just described. Only 2% are doing that when they have 31 to 40 assets. Illicit drug use. So this is youth who have reported that they have used illicit drugs such as marijuana, cocaine, LSD, PCP, angel dust, heroin, methamphetamines, narcotics in the past year. 41% of youth in grades 6 to 12 out of the 89,000 that were surveyed, 41% who have 0 to 10 assets are engaging in this illicit drug use, or less than 1% if they have 31 to 40 assets are engaging in that type of behavior. Antisocial behavior. That is defined here as youth who have been involved in 3 or more incidents of shoplifting, trouble with police, or vandalism in the past 12 months. 47% of youth that have 10 or less assets are involved in antisocial behavior, where 1% with the 31 to 40 assets are involved in that behavior. Depression and attempted suicide. 42% of youth who report depression or attempted suicide have the lower level of assets, and 3%, if they have those assets to protect them as protective behaviors, are reporting that they're feeling depressed or attempting suicide. College readiness and time management. This is described here as students making school a priority. They're meeting their deadlines and they're managing their time well. Obviously, again, you can see here, the higher the level of developmental assets that youth report, the more likely they are to have time management skills and study habits that are needed to study for college. Persistence. Now this slide is interesting in that you can see there's a less gap than you've seen in the other slides. And this is youth who report that they do not give up when things get difficult. As many of you know, the children in our program face many challenges, and many of them are resilient in the face of adversity. So I think you do see on the slide here that sometimes they actually develop that skill by the adversity that they face. So 0 to 10 assets, 54% of them are likely to report that they are persistent in the face of challenge and adversity, and 87% when they have the 31 to 40. And I think that kind of speaks here to a lesser degree of difference is because many of those children actually do learn how to become resilient in the face of adversity. So how do we choose the goals for our kids? So as I'd mentioned, when we go into a child intake, staff is talking to the child about what kind of goals they'd like, and we're talking about these assets in more child appropriate language, and we're talking to the parent. When that year anniversary comes, we are talking to, if the goal area is at school, we're talking to the teacher or counselor who may have would see the goal area that we set. If it's a school related goal, we're asking the parent if they've seen improvement, the child, and the mentor. The only way that we state if there's been improvement as a goal is if the majority agree. So typically we're asking at least 3 people, and at least 2 have to say there's improvement for us to say that the goal has been met. So what are the most commonly identified goals for the kids in our community-based program after the past 5 years? So these are the goals we most often see being chosen. So personal responsibility, being motivated to do well in school, the planning and decision making, that they're receiving support from a non-parent adult, and that they're reporting having high self-esteem. These goals are almost exactly the same for our site-based programs, which are the after-school and lunch programs, although we often see tells the truth even when it's not easy as one of the goals for those programs. So Best Friends also measures common goals. So we are a United Way agency, so we get funding from United Way. So when you have those campaigns for United Way, some of that funding does come to our program. And many of the youth serving agencies met and came up with goals that we'd like to see, that we're making an impact in the whole community of the youth that we serve. And the goals that we measure are that children feel they're doing better in school, that they plan to continue their education or training after high school, they feel prepared to resist negative pressure, that they are receiving support from a positive adult role model, that they've increased their physical activity. So these we're asking every child in the program to see how they relate to other youth-serving agencies. So it'll come up here. This was from 2018, the results from the community-based program. You can see that 92% of the youth were doing better in school. 67 were planning to get more education and training after high school as a result of participating in the Best Friends program. 92% of the kids felt more prepared to resist negative peer pressure. 94% improved in at least 2 out of 3 of those assets we just talked about. 97 gained a responsible adult in their life that they can trust and confide in, and 97% were more physically active than they had been without a mentor. And for the after school and lunch-based programs, you can take a look at these very similar percentages going down the row. You can take a look at this and refer back to that. So what's next? So we want to help the mentors in our program help the children reach more assets at a quicker rate. And that's where you come into play. What we've been trying to do is to develop or to identify the assets that the children currently have. So we have forms available at the office, and we would like you to work on that with the kids. It's very brief. You go over those 40 assets and ask the kids what they feel that they already have. Letting them know that very often children don't have all 40, and that it's okay to not have all of them, that there's areas that they're working on. You may also find that sometimes they have great self-esteem and then it backslides, and that's a goal you need to work on again. So maybe when they were younger, they weren't confident, they built it up, and all of a sudden they hit middle school, and then they're going through a whole different set of issues and need to work on that again. That's normal. So identify areas of opportunities. So after filling out that form with the kids, you definitely can look at what are the areas that they can work on and you can help them with. So find creative ways to help develop assets that the young friend doesn't have yet. I'm sure looking back at some of those assets, you think, okay, neighborhood. How can I help them have a positive neighborhood when I don't live there? Well, I think you can get creative with this. And if there's a neighbor that is maybe elderly or a single parent that is working and it snowed, I think the two of you as a match could go over there and help shovel or bake some cookies together and bring it over to the neighbor. It doesn't have to be anything extreme or that you're doing each and every time you get together, but you can definitely help make an impact on how the child feels about their neighborhood by doing simple things like that. We also talked about the reading goal before, just helping children become interested in reading by reading with them or taking time. So I'm in an excited face to get excited about these examples. The reading for pleasure is what I just talked about. Planning and decision making we talked about previously. Help them plan some activities that you guys do together. Look at the activity book that you were given, and if you can't find it, feel free to contact us and we'll give you a new one and say like what are some ideas that you have. And some of their ideas might be out there that they want to go to Disney World. Well, obviously that's not realistic. So maybe by helping them, give them 3 things that you can do. Go to a nature preserve, bake cookies, and say these are 3 things. Like what needs to all go into this? What do we need for it? And help them start to plan and make decisions. Service to others, I feel, is an easy one. Again, we talked about like raking for a neighbor, or even like fixing something you see, as well as there's many opportunities for volunteering. The Volunteer Center has a huge book and a website that you can get ideas. So perseverance is not a long race, it is many short races, one after another. I think that's a great quote for this. You are in these mentoring relationships, and it's a very unique situation in that you get to work with these kids for years. And I think that gives us great opportunities to really get to know what areas the children have strengths in and what areas of opportunity there are. And so feel free to contact us to get those forms, and we can talk more about it, or you can talk with your case manager the next time that they give you a call. So that is the end of the presentation. Hope you found this helpful. And then the idea behind it really was, in the past, staff has always talked with the parents and set the goals, and we knew why they were important and the research behind it, but we really feel that it's important to put it in the mentor's hands. So you have some understanding as to what we're working on, why we choose the goals we do, and just how important they are. And that you guys are the ones who can kind of look at different areas and throughout the years you're matched, work on those different assets they don't have. So I'd like to take this time to thank you very much for being a mentor in the program. You're doing great work. It's very valued, and we appreciate it very much, as do the families. Thank you.